We just wait for people to arrive. There's a friendly face. There we go. Starting to roll in now, Mark.
Cool. Welcome everyone. While we're just waiting for everyone to arrive, I'm keen to get a bit of interaction in this one. So while people are arriving, I'm interested for you to just put in the chat, what's your favourite current use of Gen AI? Just very brief, sentence, a few words, just while everyone's arriving. Hi, everyone who's just arriving. We're just waiting for everyone to come in to join. So just in the meantime, it'd be great to have some interaction on the chat. So if you'd like to just put your views on what's your current favourite use of Gen AI for your business or personally. I'll give everyone a few more minutes to arrive. I'm interested, James, what's the favourite thing you do with Enterprise Copilot? It's the most useful.
It's just like look at just high level analysis of like different things. So I suppose you know how you would use a search engine to find stuff. You'd use the AI to high level stuff, explain stuff, summarize stuff. It's very good for like very fast high level research, and then as long as you can follow it up with a deep dive, so it gets you, 80%
Yeah,
quicker.
certainly people are starting in these tools rather than Google search now. I think
Yeah.
it's over half the searches now are through some kind of GPT or assistant. So yeah. Keen for others to put a few comments on what they're doing and while we're just writing, and then we'll get cracking at 5 past.
Can see some furious typing going on.
Yeah. Taking notes, drafting email responses for you, Tom. I know that your email responses tend to have a chat with other people's automatic note takers often and see where the conversation goes, which is always interesting.
There was a timely conversation around Coldplay after the incident that everyone is familiar with.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, I think just going to get cracking and do the introductions, but people still add on to the chat with that. So welcome everyone. Thanks for attending. So this is actually the second in a series of three webinars that I'm doing throughout October. So a brief introduction. I'm Mark Simpson. I'm Director of Strategy and Innovation at GW. So I'm looking internally as to how we at GW better get use of AI through our software delivery and engineering, but also how we build it into our products and how we make a difference for our clients' business. In a slide, this is what GW's kind of goal or mission is to really ensure our clients get the most out of technology, that it solves business problems, not just technology looking for a problem. So it drives ROI, it drives innovation in the business. And I was at a insurance innovators conference over the last couple of days, and it's really clear that the business executives and the business stakeholders can really see what AI can do for their processes, propositions, products. And now really is the time to sort of get on and execute that for them. And the pressure's kind of ramping up, that they see their competitors, a lot of fintechs, entering the market with innovative solutions. But really, these large enterprises, they should have the data, they should have the experience, they should have the knowledge of how they can change their processes to react. So now's the time to actually, get cracking and actually do it. GW, a bit about us. We're employee owned, which really helps us to sort of stick to our values and ensure that we're doing the right products and projects for both us and our clients. Been going for over 30 years, and generally our clients stay with us for 10 years plus. So we get to really embed ourselves and understand the client's business. Okay, onto this series. So I did 2 weeks ago, and I'll recap a couple of points from that. I outlined the habits and the success factors that organizations need to get enterprise AI transformation, not just doing pilots and ad hoc standalone projects, but how to build it into their processes, their strategy, their ways of working, and ultimately the products and assets that they build. I'm going to build on that today and go into a bit more detail that once you've found opportunities, how you actually design for those and how you make sure that these will become assets and long running parts of your products, rather than just sort of, looking great for the first 3 months and then slowly decaying over time. So I'm going to be introducing a number of design patterns that's part of our blueprints that will be useful for you. And at the end, I'll give you some information of how you can download those and take those into your daily job. And then in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to bring this together into sort of how you identify opportunities and how you then build a roadmap to implementing changes as your business. So hopefully you'll get enough out of this to say, right now, how do I actually go and do the steps for it? Okay, so in the last session, 2 weeks ago, I talked about kind of five problems, 5 pain points that were occurring with the adoption of AI. The first being tools are everywhere. If you ask people what they're using for note taking or for their LLMs or for actually translations, you get a whole host of different answers. And what's the best tool for you and how you integrate it into your daily jobs is always a challenge. We also talked about legacy being a barrier to change. This was certainly the case with the insurance leaders that we talked about. Your data, your systems, and your actions are all embedded within your legacy systems. And a number of organizations have surfaced those well through digital transformation. A lot of organizations have done part of it, and some organizations are still wrestling with how they API enable and how they get the data for the consumer rather than for their internal users. So still a challenge with when you're going to start using that data and that functionality in AI solutions. We also think a big barrier is the fear of AI, the fear that the large corporations will steal our data, that we're building on foundations that all pins us down into Nvidia or OpenAI or certain organizations, that if suddenly they make a change of direction, it will ripple out and affect the whole industry. So actually how we build that confidence up and how we get everyone on board with what the goals are is a key part of our approach as well. The next one was about how you move from concept to production. See a lot of POCs, a lot of pilots with Gen AI solutions in your products. So, how can you systematically put something in place that when you've got an idea, the rate of change from idea to getting ROI in production is as short as possible. And finally, the business impact gap, that even when we've got these solutions in, how can we make sure they are solving the real business problems, the real reimagining what your business model will be in the future. So, you know, you really need a bit of a strategy, and not an IT AI strategy that just says, oh, we need privacy guidelines and security guidelines, but a strategy that says how will you tie these opportunities to real business benefits and actually roll that out. So we talked about those 5 issues, and I shared with you a bit of a sort of a maturity, a kind of a capability model, really, for actually building up strengths in all of these 6 factors, from people, strategy, product, assets, delivery, and operations, and how you can actually start building habits for this. So we don't advocate for you going away and spending 6 months putting foundations in place for AI to be successful. We feel you should build foundations and the capabilities as you go along. This is driving innovative solutions, and you can't innovate if every time you're going to take 6 months to put foundations in place. So we take an approach where we say, when you're building your products and your projects, you should put habits in place that will drive for better ROI, you know, better cultural adoption of the solutions, more business focused linkage and alignments, and tackle that legacy challenges as you go along. So solving those problems as you go through your products and projects. And there's a nice assessment, I think, that I'm keen for you to do, that will actually look at, well, which of these are you strong with at the moment, and which of these should you actually explicitly put focus on, but for building habits. So if you've got 5 minutes spare, I implore you to sort of go to that link or take that QR code and kind of go through the assessments, see the areas that are red or amber, and then it will give you, it outlines 6 habits for each of these 6 factors. And I recommend you take maybe 4, maybe 6 of these, maybe 1 in each, or maybe just a couple in the ones that you need to focus on, and work through that in maybe the next quarter or your next product cycle. And if you keep doing that, you'll raise the whole organization maturity for implementing AI. Okay. Now, one of the problems is about the AI impact gap, getting business benefit when getting the solutions into production. And this was a stat that came from Boston Consulting that said, and this was in 2025, so earlier this year, with about 2,000 respondents, 75% of executives rank AI in their top 3 strategic priorities. Now, I've seen stats that rank this even higher, and going to talking to CEOs even at the insurance event this week, you know, I saw that it was on everyone's strategic priority. So it's quite clear that organizations feel they need to act and they need to incorporate AI, not into just their processes, but their business models, right? But the same survey suggested that only a quarter of those were seeing significant value. So there's a lot of pilots going out there. A lot of people are using Copilot and personal assistants, but really at a business level, seeing significant value that's going to drive their differentiation, it's going to drive bottom line benefits, and is going to set you up for the future. It's lacking at the moment. You know, the ideas are there, but the execution is falling behind. So how do we turn this into ad hoc solutions where people are just choosing products and saying, how can we use AI in that, to something that is more operational, then strategic, and then transformative? So how do we move up this maturity model? And this is something that we have built a bit of a system called the Intelligence Blueprints, to help people understand how they should design these solutions and put them into practice and measure the value of them for success, and making sure there is repeatable design patterns and understanding of AI to move people up this maturity. So I'm keen, before I move on, I'm just interested from the attendees here, and if your consultants think about your projects or your clients, where are you at the moment in your organizations at the moment, from a maturity perspective? So I'm just going to start a little poll. Have you launched it, Tom, or I have to launch it, don't I? Because I'm the owner of it. So I'm just going to launch a poll, just not overthinking of it, but where you think you are as an organisation within this, from ad hoc at the top down to transformative at the bottom. So there's quite a few still in the piloting phase. We've got someone with strategic.
Interestingly, Mark, probably a key theme from that summit that you mentioned that we were both at the last couple of days seems to be a lot of people still stuck in that piloting phase, doesn't there? Not really seeing that strategic and transformative value.
And I think there is a lot who've done it in one area. Like there was a lot of work being done on claims and claims automation, but they were reticent to take that and roll it into other areas. So to make it systematic, to roll it out to customer facing systems, and to actually try and tackle the core elements of their business that will make a difference. And I think the audience here kind of mirrors that struggle to get off that piloting phase. So thanks for doing that with the poll. So how do we ensure then that we move from the pilot and we can meet the expectations with these AI solutions? Well, this is where we've come up with intelligence blueprints, which categorize these solutions and tackles them from three elements, three layers, if you like. The first being human experience. This is absolutely key that when we move these solutions into production, get them in the hands of your customers and your users, that the human experience is as smooth and as frictionless as possible, that we're not automating on people's behalf and it's a bit of a sort of a black box, an opaque solution that people can't understand and don't know where the decisions came from, that is actually assisting and fitting in with the human processes. That's where a lot of the knowledge is, the experience, the creativity to actually understand how these solutions can help and use them with the customers. So first of all, any AI solution we build into our products should have human experience first and central. The users, the customers, the people who are going to benefit from this. So this goes from having individual UI components to say, well, how will conversational UI work? It's no good having a great engine that's coming up with great answers, but you're treating it just like a send and response chatbot, and it's not in line with it within your application screens where you're giving people the data and you're guiding them through a journey. It's got to be embedded. It's got to be embedded within that journey through those applications. It's no good if people are having a meeting and then wanting to transcribe those notes, take summaries. If those summaries then are not in the screen when they're looking at a customer and they're recalling it, it's not presented, correctly to them. So how we change the user experience, the user interfaces of our applications to fully leverage AI is the first key layer of the blueprints, right? Repeatable design components and UI components to really, really kind of tune that human experience for AI. At the other end, on number 3 then, is the systems AI readiness. If we are going to build AI solutions and we're going to put in components that are going to really help automate part of the process and give the humans the means to really enrich those solutions, then it's got to be on solid foundations from our systems. A lot of systems are very good these days at exposing APIs, but those APIs are designed and tuned either for business to business integration connectors or for the UI to consume. This is a third level of how the consumption will be. You know, we need to be building these APIs to tune them to be included in protocols that will be used by agents, or from conversational UIs, or directly to feed context into the models. So there are a number of things we will need to do to curate unstructured documents, to build our APIs, to make them fully fit in with the AI ecosystem, and that will include securing them and making them scale. You might have had an API that was called very infrequently, but now it's available for an LLM to, you know, access, or from the application that's accessing the LLM, the scalability requirements might be very different on that. So once we've designed the human experience and we've got the systems ready, the middle piece, bringing it together now, is how we build and apply the intelligence elements. So how we will use LLMs, how we will build and use agents, how we will make sure we plug in all of the security and the guidelines, how it will fit in with business processes, how you will expose it to your clients. And it's that element I want to drill down into a bit more detail today. Now, in this element, we have designed 8 patterns for implementing AI in business solutions. So these patterns give you a bit of a guide of what is needed to do them. But first and foremost, it allows you to really understand what generative AI is about, and the difference between models and applications and how you will plug them in. And I'm a firm believer that if you're looking at new technology and new ideas and innovation, the first thing you've got to do is understand the fundamentals. You can't just trust, oh, I'm going to plug Copilot in as an API to this solution without really understanding how Copilot is working for that. And if you understand the fundamentals, you can then get the design right, and these solutions then will be long living, and they'll be able to adapt to the human experiences that you're building. So we're calling these the intelligence blueprint patterns, and I'm going to walk them through with a build one by one. Now, if you are finding these patterns useful and interesting, then we will send you, I've got a PDF that gives a bit more text about these, and we've got a blueprint guide as well. The blueprint guide is on our website. The patterns with the text are not on the website at the moment. So if when you get to sort of, you know, 6, 7, 8 of these patterns and you're finding them interested, if you just put blueprints in the meeting chat, then Tom will follow up and send out the PDFs to accompany these. So the first one, and it's a simple one by name, but absolutely crucial to understand what it really means, is context. So everyone talks about prompt engineering, and you need to be prompt engineering experts to be able to get the most out of the model. Well, what I want you to think about from a fundamental point of view is what you are doing here is you are giving the model the context, right? The full understanding of your specific situation and support and needs and outcomes that you want, for it to be able to add to its generic knowledge, to be able to give you the outcome and the response that is specific to you. And the thing that's different about Gen AI and the transformer model that it's based on, that was different from machine learning and previous other sort of iterations of AI languages, is that it's great at understanding context. It can take in and it will convert all the input text, not just to tokens to use, but it knows the interactions between the tokens, so that it can get the underlying context between paragraphs of text. It can identify more the meaning rather than just the words. So the effort really needs to go into understanding this from you as an organization, reusing previous prompts, sharing prompts, making sure you're as rich in the context in the input and how you want the output as full as possible. And that's no different if you're using ChatGPT for personal usage, Copilot at work, whether you're building in LLMs into your solutions, embedding them as part of the process. Get that context right, and the outcomes will be far superior. All right. So that's the first blueprint, the first pattern. The second one I'm called reflection. Now, again, this is kind of a variation of context that if you imagine that either again through a process or through a UI or you using Copilot, you're giving it some context, you're getting an answer. You've got to remember the LLM is walking through thinking for the most suitable next word in the answer, and it does a great job at it. But what it hasn't done there by default is it hasn't gone and looked at the whole answer, right? And actually said, is this still relevant? Am I giving the outcomes needed with all the context needed? Now I've looked at my whole answer. Is it right? So the more times that iterates round, so passing in the first question, the first context, the first cut, the draft of the answer, and going round again to refine that, to really tailor that for the outcomes you want, gets a much better response. Now, when you look at things like ChatGPT 5, you see it doing that. It calls it thinking time. It's iterating round. So the actual GPT application is going to the LLM multiple times to improve that answer and get more and more refined context. So as you're using LLMs or as you're using these tools, you can think of it like that. Even if you said, now, can you just summarize again, or can you refine from this, or can you have a look at your output and verify it's the best to meet these needs that I've got? So often called self-reflection or reflection. That's the second pattern. The third fundamental to fully understand is when you're using Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude or Anthropic's tools. These are applications, or what I'd call it from an IT point of view, clients that are using the models. So what you're doing in that client, there is a layer between you and that model, right? Now, when you're doing architecture of Gen AI solutions, this is fundamentally what you need to understand. That this means you can swap out models. It means that you've got opportunity in that middle layer here to add in extra context, extra guardrails, extra security, extra features within that, extra orchestrations or choreography as well of multiple models. So this is our tool of really kind of, this is where we would use that model. The model is fairly static. The actual application needs more real-time, up-to-date data. So fundamentally, as an architecture pattern, this is going to be key to understand. And as we are plugging this into our applications that we're building for our customers, we can understand this as well, and we can say, well, are we plugging in an application with everything around it, or are we just plugging in the model and using the base model there? And as I go through other patterns, this one will actually be key as an enabler, right? So the next pattern is knowledge. So knowledge is a specific kind of context, really. It is the knowledge that's there in your organizations. So it's all of the unstructured documents. It's all of the meeting notes that people have got, the Confluence pages or the Loop pages, etc. So here again, to add additional context is where the knowledge bases come in. And you might have heard terms like RAG, retrieval augmentation generation. Now that is a technique for pre-processing all of that knowledge and turning it in to what are called vectors and vector databases that will allow the application and ultimately the LLM to know which of those knowledge sources are relevant. But ultimately what's happening is that's getting pre-processed against your request. it is then getting selected, the relevant elements, and then those relevant elements are getting passed in as context to the LLM. So there is no link or visibility of the LLM of looking at your knowledge sources. So when you upload documents to Copilot or ChatGPT, what it's doing is pre-processing those and making that knowledge source or that knowledge registry really available there for added context to the LLM, right? So that's the important context to understand there. So when we get asked as to whether, if we upload all of our proposals, for instance, or all of our pricing modules or policy information, if we add that to ChatGPT, will the LLMs, will GPT-5 know about our personal data there? Well, no, because it's kept separately. You load it up into the application and it goes in as context to the LLM. On the same grain, you've got your structured data, you've got your business data. These are the sort of the golden assets. These are the jewels of your organization, and probably what sets apart organizations that have been in business for tens or hundreds of years from new startups. And again, when we're using this LLM, it's not about the LLM having access to your data. What we provide here is a toolbox, a registry, a list of data items that are available and where they are stored, a list of APIs, but not just the API specifications for the APIs, but the context of what that API can achieve, what the outcomes can be for it, what the business context is for it, so that when you're actually calling the LLM, you can pass in the relevant items from that registry, from that toolbox, and it knows to raise a claim in an insurance use case. It can use this API and it requires this data, to be able to get a marketing lead from a marketing system. It knows which API it needs to call, what security is needed for that, and ultimately what outcomes it will get from that. So it can use that to advise the application. Here's what my response is, and call that bit of data, from that API to supplement the response to the users. And that's where, again, it is the application that you're building that's calling your private data sources, not the LLM directly. So that's the fifth pattern. The sixth one is all about security, privacy, guardrails, making sure that the right ethics and responsible elements are baked into your solutions. So this is where this application design and that, pattern number 2 about applications becomes absolutely key here. You've got 2 injection points really here for when you're interacting with a LLM. You can change the context to make sure that your request is not asking for anything that's not allowed. So we do a lovely example dreamed up by my colleague Warren when we do workshops with people where we ask them in Copilot to draw a picture of a plumber in a red hat with a big M on having a bath, right? And what happens is, certainly in Copilot, it says, I can't do that due to copyright reasons. So it will know that you're asking for something that is copywritten. And in Copilot, if you try and get round those rules, and maybe try these yourself, and in each version it certainly changes, but you get to a stage where it will start to draw the image. If we were saying, can you do a plumber in a bath with a red hat on with an upside down W, so you're trying to trick it into saying this is not copyrighted. You get to a stage where it starts drawing the image, and then it layers on top of that, checks on the image, and it will say then this image is copyrighted because the resultant image is too close in sort of a vector space to something that's been copyrighted. ChatGPT allows you, I think, that there's got less checks in ChatGPT out of the box, but Copilot builds in through Microsoft quite a lot of guardrails on that. And You can configure things like Copilot and the Azure AI services to actually have a number of different temperatures of how much privacy and how much bias you want to watch out for. So again, when you're building your applications or you're using these, think about, have I got the right guardrails in place, the right guardrails on what people are requesting for, so they're not injecting bad actors into the process, and then guardrails and policies to apply your responsible AI policies on the outputs as well. This brings me to pattern number 7, agents, which is, any conference you go to or any LinkedIn response every day is all talking about agents, with the idea that agents will fulfill the role of certain, mundane roles within your business, customer services advisors, agents to help develop some of the standard functionality, etc. So both business and IT. But fundamental, I think, if people are using agents rather than just buying them off the shelf and plugging them in, I think you really, really want to understand the anatomy of an agent, what it really means, and how you can either customize those for your business or how easy it is to build open source agents that are specific to your business problem. Now, at heart, what an agent does is it brings together the elements that we've talked about before. It will have pre-built prompt libraries embedded within it. It will have preceded access and vectorized versions of knowledge sources. It will have libraries of APIs it can call. It will have the security credentials embedded within it to be able to call those APIs, and it will be pre-integrated to certain LLMs, right? So all of the patterns we talked about, it will include that. But it has the added ability to then combine multiple LLMs. It might use one LLM for actually its conversation to the consumer, to the user, and then another LLM for specialist knowledge about your business domain, right? So it can orchestrate those together. It can find the right LLM to use or the right API to use or the right knowledge source for the question and the problem at hand. But then there are 2 fundamental additional things that the agent frameworks kind of give you. The first is memory. So you call that agent again, and it can say, oh, it's this customer calling, this was the last conversation with it. It can persist some of the previous conversations. And again, this isn't sharing it with the LLM providers. This is it keeping it local, a local persistence store with your specific agent that will be deployed in your organization, with the right security and authorizations in place. It also has agent workflow capabilities. So this enables you to pre-build kind of processes and workflows to say, to achieve these kind of outcomes, we promote that you go to this data store with this data with these APIs. But also it can learn about that, and it can make decisions about, more like choreography type decisions. So process workflows that are kind of predetermined, I would call just orchestration. Things where it's looking at what's the best next thing to call to get the outcomes would be more like choreography of an orchestra, right? Now that would be, or a dance or whatever, that would be built into the agent, so it knows for these outcomes, these are the things I need to do. That's when you can get really, really rich functionality, right? About being more outcome driven rather than just request and response. So, this is getting richer and richer all the time, but the fundamental architecture, the fundamental autonomy is understanding all these elements, and then you can decide how to actually build the outcomes in your agents that you want. Okay, and then the final pattern is if you're finding yourself using all these other 7 and you want something that is really creative, really specific to your business and your domain, and moreover, you want to share the model with some of your partners upstream in your supply chain or downstream facing your customers and partners in your distribution channels, then you can build your own models, right? Now, this might sound a massive, massive task because you hear all the stories of how much processing power goes into the building of GPT-5 or of the latest Claude models. Well, your own model won't replicate all that. It'll build round it. So what will happen is you will use those models as the fundamentals to understand generic conversations and generic knowledge, but then you will train an extension of that model, or a tuned version or a cut down version of that model with your specific knowledge. So whether it's your knowledge sources, your APIs, or the memory from your agents, you'll be giving it Q&A, and you would be training it to really tune it for your example. So that's where you can sort of really start to use your intelligence and your knowledge for your competitive advantage. But most use cases are covered by those first 6 patterns, right? So just before we finish and I open up for any final questions, I'd just like to do another quick poll that which of these patterns, sorry, just starting the poll, which of these do you find will prove useful, the most useful? Now you can select as many as you want. If you think for your business all 8 are relevant, check all 8. I'm just interested as to which of these are really resonating. You're thinking, actually, yeah, that's what I'm going to take away, and I'm going to really think about that when I'm using this. So we'll just give it a minute on that. And while I'm doing that, yeah, feel free to add into the chat any questions that you've got. We'll have a couple of minutes at the end for any questions. And also, if you do want to get the PDF with a bit more information about those patterns and the guide that walks you through human experience, applied intelligence, and AI ready systems, then please comment in the chat, and Tom will answer. Okay, so the knowledge one, the unstructured knowledge is finding people are finding very, very useful on that, but actually it's pretty split between all of these. The low ones are the models and the applications, although I think the application pattern is fundamental for people to really understand. And maybe this audience kind of know that, they get that. But when we're talking to sort of business executives and business representative stakeholders, that's one element that I really stress. The understanding that Copilot is different from the LLMs that Copilot is using, and you've got chance to inject kind of steps within that. Okay, so I've covered at an enterprise level what sort of foundations you need to put in place. We've then covered the key patterns that you want to find when you find a solution. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to bring these together to share a process or a system we've got for identifying opportunities in your business of where you can leverage these patterns. So we run a workshop that talks people through from brainstorming ideas and opportunities through to getting tangible blueprints for how you'll implement these solutions and how you'll measure success for them. I'm going to walk you through that process. I'm going to share all the templates that we use in that, so that will be in the next couple of weeks. And that's it for all of the slides. I don't know whether anyone's got any questions. Feel free to either I don't think anyone's typed any in, Tom. I haven't seen any on the Q&A. But if anyone's got any questions, feel free to come off mute and shout up.
We've had a comment from Dave when you're talking through the patterns, Mark, which says that the real value with the patterns is how we combine these together to build an enriched enterprise pattern that combines these to deliver a suitable capability. And I think, again, based on the conversations that we've been having both over the course of the last couple of days at the Insurance Innovator Summit and just generally talking to different clients, it's that contextual knowledge, isn't it, which is the pivotal differentiator.
Yeah, I think the reason we first came up with these patterns is that we saw a lot of organizations either having a target to say we must use AI in our products or in our customer facing applications, and then people scrambling about to see how best they can learn about AI. We also see people saying when you innovate, just get started, just do it, just use it, right? But that was ending up blocking people, taking them to the next step where they could say, I can see, limited benefit of this, and in these tasks, huge benefit. But how do I build it into my applications, into my business processes, into my customer engagements, right? And taking a step back, looking at the problem, and then saying which of these 8 patterns fit here, and doing a design for that, and then choosing which is the appropriate models, which is the appropriate tools, which guardrails do we need to put in place, which APIs or knowledge sources do we need to do. Taking that approach gives you a real sort of tangible, workable design for that, right? And this isn't something where you need to go away for 3 weeks to do this design. Having these patterns and applying them all together and asking the right questions gets you a blueprint in hours or days, right? And then that allows you to evolve these AI solutions.
A good segue then into a question that we just had from James around that kind of level of measuring that tangible impact. So across all of the clients that we work with, what are the trending AI projects which deliver the most impact?
Yeah, and I think it's good question that, and I think it's changing. That it's the difference between what's delivering the most impact now and what people are starting to do and on the route towards. So now you see a lot of people using it in back office, using it for meeting notes, using it as assistance. We use it heavily in our software delivery life cycle for, throughout, not just on the engineering side, but on the testing side, on the analysis side. So using it in the back office. But where people see that it will make the huge difference is when their customers start benefiting directly from these Gen AI solutions. And a really nice solution we've put in with one of our clients is where brokers in the insurance sector are bringing future businesses, it's business to business insurance, to the provider. And instead of then having to translate their application and their needs into the forms that have been available through customer portals or broker portals and the APIs that might link up the systems, then the solution Gen AI has helped take in the information in whatever format they want and translate that to identify the right policies and products that are needed for that, what information is missing, and tailor that so that actually it kind of presents then the application and the offer how it was. We also see a lot in insurance companies. The aim is to get first time resolution of claims. There's nothing more frustrating when you are applying for a claim on your motor insurance to have to go through about 3 or 4 or 5 interactions where all the facts are there, all the context is there, but you're getting passed around different people. And I think in the insurance sector, that is where they see the real kind of killer case study. If whatever you are claiming on, all the context is known, you're asking all the information, you may be recording that call and transcribing it, you've got all the context from all parties, you gather that together, and you have first time call resolution on that to say by the end of the call, yeah, that claim's authorized, it'll be sorted for you. There's nothing better than retaining a customer at a renewal than processing a claim as efficiently as possible. So thinking about those, how people can interact with their customers and get things done right first time, but delighting them in that moment of truth, I think is where there will be huge impact there. Frictionless journeys for customers is what really retains them, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you, Mark. We are out of time, folks,
Yeah.
I'm afraid. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. You will receive a recording once this is processed in your inboxes. So thank you very much. Mark, thank you as ever. And we hope to see you all in a couple of weeks. The sign up link I've popped in the chat. So if you've got friends, family, colleagues, aunts, uncles, whoever it might be who you think would benefit from that workshop, please do share that link with them, and we will see you all in a couple of weeks.
Thanks all.
Thanks everybody. Take care.